From the national newsroom of the Canadian Press, I'm John Kennedy. Residents of Montreal's Village neighborhood say they've seen some improvements to local security and cleanliness in the area, but more needs to be done. Last June, Montreal launched a strategy to revitalize the historic LGBTQ district after residents and business owners raised safety concerns about the homelessness, drug use, and mental health issues persisting in the area. Community Service Association CDC Centre Sud's Francois Bergeron says the province needs to help provide more resources to unhoused people in the village. A wrongfully convicted New Brunswick man who spent decades trying to clear his name has died at the age of 80, just months after he was finally exonerated. Walter Gillespie was wrongfully convicted of murder in 1984. Ron Dalton, co-president of Innocence Canada, remembers Gillespie as a worldly, well-read man who loved painting, dressing in bright colors, and being a father.
The one thing that was most important to him was his one and only daughter knowing that he was not a murderer. So that exoneration meant an awful lot to him.
Gillespie died yesterday at his home in St. John. People living in the blast zone of a central Labrador structure fire were given the green light to return home today after officials ended a brief evacuation order. Residents living close to the old airport in the Happy Valley Goose Bay area of Newfoundland and Labrador were forced to evacuate after a fire broke out near an area where liquid oxygen tanks were being stored. Community Fire Chief Brad Butler says crews worked to extinguish the flames before they also had to evacuate, as the fire had ultimately reached several of the tanks. The tanks didn't explode, but crews did find gas cylinders that had blasted out of the building and landed roughly 30 meters away. The United States House of Representatives has approved a $95 billion package that will provide military aid to Ukraine and Israel, replenish U.S. weapon systems, and give humanitarian assistance to civilians in Gaza. The bill moves on to the Senate, where passage is expected in the coming week, with close to $61 billion slated just for Ukraine and U.S. weapon stockpiles. Top lawmakers on national security committees have grown gravely concerned about the situation in Ukraine as Russia pummels Ukrainian forces due to a shortage of troops and ammunition. And today's the day to find an old-school record store and browse the stacks of wax.
There's room for vinyl in a digital world. On this National Record Store Day, shop owners and record aficionados saying streaming music just doesn't compare to listening to and holding an album. Luke Sardello of Josie Records in Dallas.
People enjoy having a tangible piece of music that they can hold in their hands. You know, it's a different experience than if you're streaming something.
And many agree physical record sales are at the highest level in decades. Last year, nearly 50 million vinyl records were sold, up 14% from the year before. Dave Packer, ABC News.
This is the Canadian Press. In sports, the status of Toronto Maple Leafs forward William Nylander is unclear for tonight's NHL playoff opener against the Boston Bruins. The winger wasn't on the ice this morning for the pregame skate after sitting out yesterday's practice in Boston. Nick Robertson will draw into the lineup for tonight's Game 1 of the best-of-7 series if Nylander can't play. Donovan Mitchell scored 30 points, Jarrett Allen had 18 rebounds, and the Cleveland Cavaliers beat the Orlando Magic 97-81 in Game 1 of their playoff series in the NBA. Evan Mobley added 16 points for Cleveland, which got bullied and bounced in just 5 games by the New York Knicks in the 2023 postseason. That experience scarred the Cavs, who entered these playoffs a little more confident and relatively healthy after a regular season filled with injuries. Montreal tennis player Felix Auger-Aliassime is ousted in a men's quarterfinal at the Bavarian International Tennis Championship in Munich. The Canadian fell in straight sets in a rain-interrupted match to Germany's Jan-Lennard Struve. From the Canadian Press, I'm John Kennedy.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to follow and subscribe. For more of today's top stories, visit thecanadianpressnews.ca.